You're 19 years old, and you're shaving in front of a steel mirror in the head of the USS Arizona at 7:48 in the morning. It's Sunday, December 7th, 1941. In 18 minutes, your ship will stop existing. In 9 minutes after that, 1,177 men will be dead, and your best friend will be one of them, and you will spend the next 80 years trying to figure out why you're not on that list. You don't know any of that yet. Right now, you're worried about whether you finished polishing your shoes for chapel. You're a Seaman Second Class. You enlisted 14 months ago in a recruiting office in a town in Nebraska that nobody on this ship has heard of. You've been on the Arizona for 10 months. She's 608 feet of steel, 12 14-inch guns and 4 turrets, 29,000 tons of battleship moored at Berth F-7 on the southeast side of Ford Island, and to a kid from a town with a population under 2,000, she's the largest thing you've ever stood on. You sleep in a hammock in a compartment with 30 other men. You eat in a mess hall that serves real coffee and real eggs and bread that doesn't come from your mother's kitchen. You make $21 a month, and you save most of it because there's nothing to spend it on out here except cigarettes and the occasional movie ashore. Your bunkmate's name is Eddie. He's from Massachusetts. He's 20 years old. He plays trumpet in Band 22, which is the Arizona's Navy band 21 men strong. Eddie can play anything. He can play the Star-Spangled Banner so it makes you stand up straighter, and he can play Stardust so slow it makes you remember a girl you barely knew in high school. Last night, the band competed in the Battle of Music at Bloch Arena, an elimination tournament between Pacific Fleet ship bands. They played between rounds. They played dance music, the Arizona sailors heckled the Pennsylvania sailors, and one of them shouted across the room, "We get to sleep in tomorrow." You have to play for colors at 0800. Everybody laughed. Eddie laughed. The finals are tonight. Eddie thinks they're going to win. You finish shaving, you walk back to your compartment. Eddie's already up, dressed in his band whites, polishing his trumpet with a rag. He sees you and grins. "Saved a piece of bacon for you," he says. He hands you a cold strip wrapped in a napkin. You eat it standing up. He says he'll see you on the fantail at 0800 for colors. He says he's nervous about tonight. He says if they win, he's buying you a beer. You tell him he's never bought a beer in his life. He laughs. He walks out. That's the last time you ever see him. You go up to the boat deck at 7:53. The sky is a thin Hawaiian blue. The trade winds are coming in at maybe 10 miles per hour from the northeast. There are clouds over the mountains, but the harbor is clear. The temperature is 70 degrees. The smell is salt water and diesel, and something faintly floral from the gardenias on Ford Island. The Pennsylvania is ahead of you in dry dock. The Oklahoma is moored ahead. The West Virginia, the Tennessee, the California, the Nevada. Battleship Row. 8 battleships in a city of metal that you've been told represents the most concentrated naval power in the Pacific. You've been told this so many times you started believing it. At 7:55, you hear engines. Not ship engines, aircraft. Multiple aircraft. Low. You look up, specks coming in over the harbor from the northwest. Dozens of them. You squint, somebody beside you says it's a drill. Somebody else says they're army planes from Hickam. The lead aircraft drops something silver into the water near the Oklahoma. The silver thing makes a long bubble trail in the harbor. You watch the bubble trail walk across the surface and disappear into the side of the Oklahoma. The Oklahoma jumps. That's the only way to describe it. 27,000 tons of battleship physically jumps in the water. A column of gray water rises higher than her superstructure, and in the same second you see the aircraft turning over Ford Island, and you see the red circles painted on their wings. Meatballs. That's what somebody calls them later. You don't have a word for them yet. You just know they're not American. You tell yourself this is a drill that went wrong, that somebody mixed up a training exercise with the real thing, that in 30 seconds, someone on Ford Island will get on a radio and call this off. The Oklahoma is rolling under her side, and you are still telling yourself this. The general quarters klaxon starts, then the bosun's pipe, then the announcement, "All hands man your battle stations." You run. You don't think about where you're running to. Your training does it for you. You're heading toward the forward, AA, gun director 4 levels up. You make it to the second ladder before the ship lurches. Something hit. You don't know what. You keep climbing. You make it up another deck. The ship lurches again. Something else. Eddie. You think about Eddie? He's on the fantail with his band. They were supposed to play colors at 0800. It's 8:01. You don't know yet that all 21 of them dropped their instruments the second the alarm sounded and ran below decks. You don't know that Band 22's emergency station was as ammunition handlers in the forward magazines. You don't know that Eddie is currently 3 decks down, passing 14-inch powder bags through a chain of men, surrounded by 500 tons of gunpowder, and that he has approximately 5 minutes left to live. You make it to the AA gun director at 8:04. The chief is already there. He's screaming for ammunition. The 5-inch guns aren't firing because the ready ammunition was locked up overnight the way it always is on Sunday in port. Men are running ammunition belts up from below. The guns start to fire. The harbor is full of smoke. You can see the Oklahoma rolling onto her side. You can see torpedo wakes everywhere. You can see Japanese aircraft so low you can see the pilots' faces. One of them is grinning. You will remember that grin for the rest of your life. At 8:06, a single bomb finds your ship. You don't see it hit. Nobody does. It comes from 10,000 feet up, dropped from a Nakajima B-5N flying in a horizontal pattern that was designed for this exact target. The bomb is a converted 16-inch armor-piercing battleship shell. It weighs 1,760 pounds. It hits the forecastle deck on the starboard side just forward of turret 2. It punches through 5.5 inches of deck armor, then 4 more decks below that. It enters the forward magazine. The forward magazine contains 500 tons of smokeless powder for the 14-inch guns. The bomb's own explosive charge is 50 pounds. The 50 pounds is enough. 7 seconds. That's how long it takes. 7 seconds from the bomb striking the deck to every magazine in the forward part of the ship simultaneously detonating. You don't experience 7 seconds. You experience a wall of light and a wall of sound, and then nothing. The shockwave hits you before the heat. It throws you off the AA platform. You don't fall. You fly. 60 feet through the air over the rail. You're aware of being airborne and aware that the ship is no longer beneath you, and then you're underwater, and then you're back up. And you're coughing oil out of your lungs, and there's something on your back that's hot, in a way that water shouldn't be. Your shirt is on fire. The water has 6 inches of bunker oil floating on top of it, and the bunker oil is on fire. You're swimming through liquid that's burning and also drowning you. Your face is in the oil. You can't breathe through it. You can't see through it. You can taste it. You go under to put out your shirt. You come up. The fire is everywhere on the surface. You go under again. You stay under longer than feels safe. You come up in a patch of clear water, and you breathe and you look up. The Arizona is gone. Not literally. The aft section is still there, burning. But the forward third, where turret 2 used to be, where the bridge used to be, where Captain Van Valkenburg and Admiral Kidd were standing 30 seconds ago, is just gone. There's a fireball where the bridge was, 50 feet high, climbing. The foremast has collapsed forward into the cavity. Smoke is pouring out of the entire hull. And men are coming over the side. Men on fire. Men without clothes because the explosion blew their clothes off. Men with skin hanging in sheets. You swim. You swim toward a launch from the Vestal that's pulling people out of the water. You don't know if you're going to make it. The oil is everywhere and the oil is burning. A hand grabs your collar. Then another hand, they drag you over the side of the launch. You vomit oil on the deck. The man who pulled you in says something. You can't hear him. Your ears are ringing at a pitch that drowns out everything else. He puts a blanket on your back. The blanket sticks to your shirt. The shirt is melted to your skin. The launch keeps moving. They keep pulling men out. Some of the men they pull out die in the bottom of the boat. You see one man with no eyes. You see another man who looks fine until you realize his arm is gone at the shoulder. You see a chief who's holding what's left of a sailor against his chest the way you'd hold a child. The chief is crying. Quietly. Without any sound. Just water on his face that isn't seawater. You tell yourself Eddie made it to a different launch. That somebody else pulled him out of the water the same way somebody pulled you out. That he's on the Solace already, getting a blanket, asking about you. You hold this thought the way a drowning man holds a piece of wood. They take you to the hospital ship. Solace. You don't remember boarding her. You remember being in a bed with nurses cutting your shirt off in pieces. You remember a doctor saying the word grafts. You remember the smell of the burn ward, which is something between cooked meat and antiseptic and a smell that doesn't have a name and never will. You don't see Eddie. You ask. Nobody knows? You ask again. Somebody finally tells you they're still pulling men out of the water, and the count won't be done for days. You ask which compartment Band 22 ran to. The man tells you the forward magazines. You don't ask again. The Arizona burns for 2.5 days. The fire is so big that crews from other ships have to keep hosing down their own paint to keep it from blistering. The harbor surface is on fire for hours. The smell of burning oil sits over Pearl for weeks. Admiral Nimitz, when he arrives later in December, says the air smells of fuel oil and burning ships so thoroughly that men stationed there have stopped noticing. You notice? You will always notice. For the rest of your life, the smell of bunker oil will put you back in that water. The Arizona doesn't sink so much as settle. She rests in 38 feet of water with parts of her superstructure still above the surface. The Navy decides not to raise her because the forward third is structurally gone, and salvage is impossible. Over 900 men are inside her. Eddie is one of them. They will stay there. The ship is declared a war grave. Nobody is coming for them. The final count comes back a week later. Out of 1,512 men aboard, 1,177 are dead. Only 229 bodies are recovered. Captain Van Valkenburg's remains are never found. Admiral Kidd's remains are never found. They find his Naval Academy class ring fused to the conning tower. That's what they bury. You tell yourself Eddie didn't suffer, that 7 seconds isn't long enough to suffer, that the magazine going up is so total, so instantaneous that there isn't time for fear or pain or anything at all. You tell yourself this for years. You tell yourself this every time you wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about the fantail at 0800 and the trumpet that didn't get to play colors and the Battle of Music final that nobody ever held because the Navy canceled it and the remaining ship bands voted unanimously to award it. First place to Band 20, 2 posthumously. The remaining ship bands awarded first place to a band that didn't exist anymore. Eddie won. He just wasn't there to know it. You spend 4 months in hospitals. They graft skin from your thighs onto your back. The grafts take. The scars are permanent. You will see them in mirrors for the next 80 years, every time you take off a shirt, and they will remind you of a Sunday morning that doesn't seem real anymore, but is the only morning that ever fully happened. President Roosevelt addresses Congress on December 8th. He calls it a date which will live in infamy. The Senate votes unanimously for war. The House passes the declaration with 1 dissenting vote. By Monday afternoon, the United States is officially at war with Japan. 350,000 men enlist in the next month. Most of them don't know your name, or Eddie's name, or the name of any man who died on the Arizona. They know the name of the ship. That's enough. You're reassigned to a destroyer in February 1942. You serve through the rest of the Pacific War. Midway, Guadalcanal, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. You see things on those islands that should weigh more than a Sunday morning in Hawaii. Somehow they don't. The Sunday morning is heavier than all of them combined, and you don't know why. You go home in 1946, you marry a girl who waited for you, you work as a mechanic for 38 years, you have 3 children and 7 grandchildren. You don't talk about the Arizona. Your kids learn what happened to you from a brief paragraph in a school history book, and they ask you about it once, and you say it was a long time ago, and they don't ask again. In 1962, they dedicate a memorial above the wreck. White concrete spans the hull without touching it. The architect was an Austrian who'd been interned at Sand Island during the war as an enemy alien. He designed it to sag in the middle and stand strong at the ends. Initial defeat, ultimate victory. There's a marble wall inside with 1,177 names on it. Eddie's name is on it. You go once, you read his name. You put your hand on the marble. You don't cry because crying for one name on a wall of 1,177 feels like an insult to the other 1,176. You leave. The Arizona still leaks oil, 2 to 9 ports a day. They call it the Black Tears of the Arizona. There are 500,000 gallons of bunker oil still inside the hull, slowly seeping out of a ship that was supposed to burn for a few days and then be raised. But instead, she became a tomb that's been weeping for 80 years and counting. Tourists watch the oil come up from the wreck and break the surface of the water in slow black drops. Some of them know what they're looking at. Most don't. You're 98 years old. There are 5 Arizona survivors left. The doctor says you're on a list of 335 and the list is almost done. When you die, your kids have arranged for your cremated remains to be interred inside the wreck. There's a program. A diver takes the urn down, places it in the gun turret, closes the hatch. You'll spend whatever comes after this with Eddie and the band, and Captain Van Valkenburg, and Admiral Kidd, and 900 other men who never got to leave. It's not heaven, and it's not hell. It's just where you've always belonged since 8:06 in the morning, on December 7th, 1941. The rest of the 80 years has been borrowed time. You always knew that. You just didn't know how to say it out loud. You were a kid from Nebraska who took 18 extra minutes to shave that morning. Eddie wasn't. That's the entire difference between the two of you. Not bravery, not virtue, not destiny. 18 minutes. And you have spent every single day since then trying to make those 18 minutes mean something. And you never could, because they don't mean anything. They were just 18 minutes, and they were yours, and his weren't. That's not survival. That's just the part of the morning that didn't kill you.